Dumb, cool,
weird
podcast. Welcome to the Dumb, Cool, Weird podcast, and we have a guest today. We have Matt.
Oh yeah, Matt. That's me.
Yeah. So,
yes.
Yeah. So, last week we watched Dawn of the Dead, and this week we watched, Day of the Dead. Matt's actually never seen Day of the Dead, but me and Nick have. So this is definitely an interesting perspective here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, what'd you think, Matt?
It makes me feel really, really kind of dumb because I haven't spent a lot of time watching these older films. I didn't really grow up too much with that kind of influence.
Yeah.
So being a filmmaker myself, I tend to look at films at like, what can I learn from how they made it? I can tell you that I enjoyed watching it more than a lot of the newer zombie movies simply because they used practical effects. It felt more real in a lot of aspects, even though like visually sometimes it was a bit cheeky.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It felt like I could look past that because it wasn't Hollywood just trying to sell me a film. Based off of their ability to do VFX. And I think it was, for me, as someone that hasn't watched a lot of the older films, sorry to go all technical, that's just the way my brain takes it.
No, that's fine. You can be technical. I mean, so one of the things that me and Nick really like about George A. Romero is he doesn't really play by the Hollywood rules very much. He sort of like kind of takes it in a direction where he kind of has a lot of control of it. He did another movie called The Crazies.
Yep.
And
it's a good one too.
It's another movie where he really just did what he wanted to do with it. He's one of those guys, he's kind of a pioneer for, independent filmmaking, because he basically made, Night of the Living Dead, like kind of on a shoestring budget in his own way. It became very popular. Unfortunately, he didn't copyright it properly and he lost the copyright on it, but he was able to make, Dawn of the Dead, Crazies, and Day of the Dead, and it kind of solidified his immortality, so to speak.
And it's crazy when you think about that. He basically created the zombie genre and then the infected genre.
Yeah, pretty much.
By doing that, because, there is a difference. Zombies are dead. Infected are technically still alive.
Yeah, kind of like, a good example would be like 28 Days Later. They're infected. They're infected. They're not actually dead because if you notice by the end of the movie, they all start dying.
Starving to death.
Oh. Yeah, essentially. So there is a big distinction there between a ghoul and an infected person, like almost like they have rabies,
Yep.
But I will say Day of the Dead is my favorite horror movie of all time. It's iconic. It's one of those movies that is very dark. It's got a really good soundtrack. In my opinion, it's one of the biggest influences for future zombie flicks, including the TV show The Walking Dead. The creator said that he got a lot of influence from this movie.
And you can really tell when you see it because the insanity within the characters and the irrationality really shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you mentioned that while we were watching it, and the second that you said that was an influence, immediately I could see.
Yeah, exactly.
I could see where they were, like what individual parts they were pulling influences from, like even down to some of the zombie design and things like that. Like, while their techniques and execution wasn't nearly as advanced as it is today, you could definitely see where they were pulling influences from. Like it made so much sense once you said that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that's really important to remember too is, this movie right here is a movie, in the zombie genre that doesn't really focus on the zombies a whole lot. It's more about the people. Because in Dawn of the Dead, they did that a little bit. And then in Night of the Living Dead, they did that a little bit. But those two movies focused heavily on the zombies. This movie focuses on the interactions more of the people. The people, the people are more the trauma and the problem and insanity comes from the humans, not the zombies necessarily. Because everything that happened in this movie could have been totally prevented if these fucking people weren't acting like idiots and acting crazy towards each other.
Well, and to be very fair, the army couldn't trust the scientists couldn't trust the army. The trust issues just boiled over. Who knows how long they've been underground and hadn't interacted with anybody but each other for so long.
Yeah.
Eating that canned food, drinking Ralph's beer.
Yeah, Ralph's beer.
Probably 1930.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's probably Prohibition beer. And the fact is, like, when you think about it, think about how stressful it would be if you're having to, like, go and get these living specimens from the mines of Moria and just trying to make sure you don't get bitten and die.
Yep.
Constantly. It would make you go fucking mental.
Yeah, one of the things that, was the big plot point of this movie is you have the military guys, you have the scientists, and the military guys are tasked with making sure the scientists are able to complete their job, essentially.
Yep.
And there's a lot of tension going on because the military guys just keep dying one by one, and the scientists aren't really dying off that quickly.
Well, and it's like you said, right? Because they're having to help them complete the task, they got to do all that dirty grunt work.
Yep.
Like,
It's making them feel
retrieve 'em.
making them feel a little anxious and pissed off,
I mean, that's
Which
why.
is understandable.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's what I was saying. It's like everyone was going fucking mental at the end.
Mm-hmm.
That when they knew how to kill the zombies, but everyone went so fucking wild that they just couldn't figure out how to aim for the head anymore.
Yep.
Except for John.
Yep. And the biggest thing that you find out, because most of them are pretty normal people, aside from like basically the scientists are relatively normal. Some of the military guys are a little fucking crazy, little batshit, especially the guy that gets his arm amputated, that was having sex with the other female scientist, the only female scientist, by the way. And it's really, really, really just people that are pissed off coming from the military perspective, and then the scientists trying to quell them. But then you have the one head scientist, the doctor. They call him Dr. Frankenstein in the movie.
He was just going insane on his
This
own
guy's
level.
insane. He was literally just doing experimentation on some of their dead men and trying to bring them back to life. And he's like, oh, you have to offer them things. You have to give them rewards to get them to do what we want them to do.
Yeah, but
Not
I
only
mean, at the
that-
same time, that didn't seem too crazy when he showed that it worked.
Yeah,
But one zombie...
bub.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But one zombie having to get rewarded with human flesh, like when they don't have that much human flesh that they can go
offer.
through, so it's like eventually something's got to give.
Yeah, not
Yeah,
to mention,
totally.
if I don't know if y'all noticed this, but when he was playing the tape recorder, like him talking, did you notice he was talking to himself and he was insane?
Yeah, he was like mother, hacking away at one of the men's like bodies, and then saying father.
Yeah, he was insane. That's why
I've got to give them a treat.
Yeah, that's why the lady and the Irish guy were freaking out so bad.
Well, yeah, and especially because after those two guys died, he immediately started experimenting and chopping up their bodies.
Yep, pretty
Yeah,
much.
I mean, yeah, that was pretty immediate.
Yeah,
I mean,
very
it was
quickly.
like only a few minutes.
And then the major from the morning when she found the uniform, it's like, dude, if you're gonna be fucking around like with these fresh corpses, you might want to like burn the uniforms.
Yeah. Especially
Basically.
if you're not trying to clue anyone in.
Yeah, he was not very subtle.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so basically this whole movie is just them, and they're in Florida and they're inside of a bunker and they're trying to find a quote unquote way to reverse it, like the female scientist is, and then the other guy is basically just trying to train them to be subservient to humans. And basically it's all hopeless. I mean, you can kind of tell in the very beginning that this is really not going to end well for any of them, especially when the one guy goes, "Oh, we're outnumbered 1 to 400,000." Holy shit.
But yeah.
I also have to wonder, where did he get that statistic? If he hadn't been topside in such a long time.
Well, it's a good question. I mean, maybe it was just a rough estimate.
Yeah, I get that, but it's just like, I feel like he was just starting to make shit up. The only real scientist who had his head on his shoulders was Josh, the guy they just blew his brains out
For no reason.
Yeah,
no
he didn't
reason.
do
He
anything
was
wrong.
innocent. 100%
Yeah.
innocent.
Like he did nothing. He was like, "Why the fuck am I with these people?"
Yeah, and he
The
picked
only-
he picked the wrong assignment.
I mean,
Yeah.
really, the only other competent person was John.
And yeah, John was the only
Jamaican
one who
guy,
could
yeah.
also, for some reason, shoot in the dark really well.
Yeah, super well.
He had a sweet setup too. He had like a trailer down in the cave.
Yeah, the Irish guy
Yeah.
and John were like
yeah,
living
the
it
Irish,
up.
Irish guy is probably my favorite character as far as acting goes. He
No.
he kind of nailed that sort of cocky, don't give a shit Irishman.
Yep.
He's been drinking and smoking since the apocalypse has happened.
Yeah, I mean,
just nonstop. Can't stop. You know?
He's like, I don't need food. I just need me whiskey.
Whiskey in my pipe. But yeah, it and you can and we were talking in the beginning, like, one of the worst actors is the guy. I guess
Hispanic guy,
the
yeah.
Hispanic guy. He's one of the worst guys in the entire fucking movie. Not because he's a bad character. He's a shitty character, but also he's just a bad actor.
yeah,
Yeah.
he was terrible. He was
He
like
had-
from the very first line. It was like, oh man, this dude is not good.
horrid.
No.
Yep. And
even his mannerisms were like really really bad. They were unnatural.
Forced, yeah.
Like when he sat, like in the very first few scenes when he sat down on the golf cart.
Oh, yeah.
like
Yeah.
you know. Even the way he like slammed his gun down to try to like add an exclamation point to what he was trying to say.
Because when he threw his back, he was like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
Yep. And the thing is, this entire movie could have been prevented if they would have just isolated this guy somewhere, locked him up.
Or if, when Washington decided to send a bunch of scientists with a bunch of soldiers, they should have brought more than one woman.
Yeah, that's another one
like
too.
Everyone was sexually frustrated out the ass.
You're not wrong about that.
I mean, the only two guys, well, maybe three guys, were the guys who were topside, who were just like smoking weed and growing it.
Yeah.
Like they were the only ones who were really chilled out, and they died unceremoniously.
Yep. Yep. And the way this movie ends is kind of the way you would expect it to end. The three people that you like the most, that are the most likable, they end up getting to the chopper and getting the hell out of there. But the main character, she has tons of horrible, awful dreams throughout the movie, and you get like a fake out at the end where you think she's about to get attacked when they're getting in the helicopter. Turns out they're already on the beach on the deserted island.
Yeah, eating seagulls and fishing.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I don't know. Maybe I just missed it. What was the motivation of the guy to go and let the zombies in? And why? I mean,
just nuts.
Obviously, he was losing his mind. But
I think he was just finally totally gone batshit, and he was convinced that he was infected. So he was like, "I'm gonna take this whole thing down with me."
Yeah, that's why I just let the zombies eat him anyway.
I got you. Yeah, I was a bit confused.
That was a little weird, though.
I was like, why is this dude doing this? Like,
but the level,
what's the purpose? What is he achieving by it? I mean, there was obviously it was.
Oh yeah.
It's one of those things that it shows how something like that affects people differently. Like his PTSD made him do stupid shit like that. He probably just was out of his mind, honestly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean everybody was
especially
like
since he had
maniacally.
especially since he had his arm chopped off. Yeah, he was crazy.
Which he probably would have died from that in actuality, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But moving on to like the best part is the dumb, cool, and the weird, and we'll go down the line here. What do we feel like is the dumb portions for the dumbest portion for each one of you guys?
Oh god,
I got to think on that one.
I mean, I
think I know mine because I actually made it kind of a big deal about it while we were watching. It's when they put the two characters on the other side of the fence to waste them. It's like literally the fence is like 4 foot tall behind you.
Climb it.
Like just climb it and get out of there. Like why did you run into the zombies? Like you literally could have got out, even if you risked, having to like fight the army guys or whatever. That seems like a better fate than running into the dark with zombies.
Yep.
So the dumbest thing that I think of is the fact that they literally kept the zombies at the fence without like trying to cull them.
Mm-hmm.
After a while, they just let them keep piling up at the fence topside to where they couldn't even fill up the helicopter with gas, or the fact that they had a bunch of zombies living
inside of the bunker.
Yeah, with them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
With nothing but a chain.
Yeah, I was going to say the dumbest part for me was when they had them chained up with one single chain and not multiple ways to pull them down. Like tie them down.
And the next part about that was they broke out of their restraints pretty easily. Like they just had to remove one pin by chance, and then your whole life is just destroyed.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think Bub was the best actor in the whole film.
So would you say that's the coolest part of the movie is Bub?
Yeah, Bub is
I think
the
Bub.
Coolest.
I think that sort of
kind of tapping into the
that duality.
There's something of the left of the person who was there before type of thing.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool, and actually I believe it leaves room for his story, and I think that should be made.
Yeah,
I think there's a Bub story arc that needs to be explored.
He's just going through the wasteland of the zombie apocalypse, like saving other survivors, like from vandals and hooligans.
with guns though.
He like leaves the army base with like the remaining firearms.
Yeah, and he continues to learn and remember, and he gets stronger, and he just becomes a god
faster.
Yeah, I think one other thing I think was really cool was I think they really stepped up the practical effects, especially when they're getting ripped apart. Like it's like the one guy gets his head ripped off.
Yeah, some of that's really good.
It was really cool.
That was awesome.
Let's talk
Some
about
of it's kind of funny though, like the water hose of blood and
Like they were just like, let's spray this blood. Or they shot that when John shot that one zombie in the head, and it was like she became a squirter all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. What was the weird? What was weird about this movie? You know, for me, I think one of the weirdest scenes is how they kept defending the guy, the one guy, you know, the guy that like had to get his arm amputated. Like this guy, like at every corner has just been a piece of shit, and you keep defending him. I think that's fucking weird. You know?
Yeah, that and
because they never really gave a reason to defend that guy. He was terrible from the beginning.
Yep.
Like he was a liability from day one.
There was no redeeming qualities that they showed of that guy at all.
You know what else I thought was weird? I thought that scientist said that he was weird too.
Yeah,
he's a weird motherfucker, dude.
Honestly, that's probably one of the weirder things because he just did stuff behind closed doors without anybody checking in on him.
No, he didn't. He didn't report everything either.
Yeah, like he was like, and that's why. I mean, I'm gonna say it. I side with the army on this one of them like getting fucking tired of his shit.
Yeah, no, I totally agree there.
No.
Like their risk, they kept having their guys die.
I still think he proved his hypothesis true, though.
But on one, you know what I mean? Like it's like, can he recreate this experiment without more people?
And obviously,
dying?
He hasn't
never
because he didn't. Yeah. He wasn't that successful because he was like obviously he said they're like, what happened to that guy? And he's like, oh, he was too difficult to deal with, so I took him out. And it's like,
oh yeah, he was like just killing zombies that weren't cooperating with him.
Yeah, so that just proves that what he was doing was just a bunch of bullshit anyway, you know?
Unless it was just part of the process.
I don't know.
Never know.
Because he was also saying, don't worry, the corpse is still useful. Yeah. It's like, how? And then you had that weird body in the little chamber.
He kind of showed...
baby.
Yeah.
He kind of showed how the corpse was still useful with the disembodied...
head.
The major
by putting electricity to its brainstem, it was dead, it was gone, but he was still able to learn things from it. So I think that's probably what he was referencing when he says there's still.
Well, if it was like unhooked, he would have had to drive that drill through its brain. So the brain activity is now useless.
Well, we know logic don't play into
zombie movies.
Well, clearly, he was pulling statistics that didn't really matter out earlier. 1 to 400,000. Are you sure about those numbers?
I mean, maybe he had some like information from previous radio communication.
Maybe.
Yeah, and that was the next thing, right? Is like they're asking the Irish guy. That was weird too. They're asking the Irish guy to try and use World War II technology to try and communicate with people on the
in Washington.
In Washington. Like those radio signals aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was Day of the Dead. You know, this is definitely one of my favorite movies just because you know, one of the things I really like about this movie too is the soundtrack is just across the board is awesome.
Really good.
And I actually listen to that soundtrack sometimes.
What was cool about it was it just served the film. It does it.
Yes.
Like if you weren't really, it wasn't one of those soundtracks that just stood out. You know, like it fit in the film. If you weren't necessarily paying attention to the soundtrack, you didn't pay much mind to it. But once you did, you know, you're like, wow, this is great. But it fit in the story. It felt like it should be there. Like you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like
it was catered to that movie, which is great.
No.
Well, yeah, it was definitely like someone sat down and scored the film. Yeah,
yeah. I think his name was John Harrison. I think was the name of the guy that scored the movie. But yeah, like I said, that was Day of the Dead. Next week we got Return of the Living Dead, which is an unofficial sequel to Night of the Living Dead. It's going to wrap up the zombie movies for this month and, you know, kind of get us in and out. You know, let us know what you think. You know, comment down below. You know, we like those interactions. They're great. Let us know if you think think that like our takes on this are fucking bullshit or not. You know?
Hey, here's a real question. Do you agree with the army or did you agree with those scientist nerds?
Yeah, you decide.
You decide. There you go.
You decide on that. But Nick, you want to sign us off?
Stay sexy, Atlanta.
Thanks for watching the Dumb Cool Weird podcast, where we cover some of your favorite movies in 20 minutes or less for your convenience. We go over what is dumb, cool, and weird about movies, and check out our Way Back Wednesdays we do sometimes for other stuff. And please share us with your friends.